What is up, RotoGrinders? Happy Wednesday. 2 hours. We have nonstop NBA DFS conversation taking y'all straight up the lock, 7 o'clock on the East Coast. We yield to crunch time. You got the Taylors, Taylor Smith, Taylor J. Zwarych. Kids call him TJ. Also Kevin Roth. Kevin Roth, we holding that down. Crunch time starting around 6:15, 6:20 or so. It's myself and Keith Eister. Keith, this is a fun one. It feels like there's how some slates, like it's like an 8-gamer and it feels smaller. This is a 6-gamer, and it kind of feels bigger because there's a lot of moving parts. There's potential. We kind of talked pre-show. There's potential shenanigans afoot. Something really smells in Brooklyn tonight. We'll talk about that. Brooklyn, Milwaukee, especially the Brooklyn side, but possibly Milwaukee too. Maybe a counter move for Milwaukee with Giannis Antetokounmpo currently questionable. Brooklyn ruling out most of their players, but not all of their players. Welcome to the show, Keith. Happy Wednesday. Happy hump day. I think it's a good one. I'm excited about today's slate. We actually have some potential value plays. That's something that could be nice. I can actually build lineups. I look at it, think, you know what? I don't completely hate this. I kind of like this. Welcome. What's up, Keith?
Hey, yeah, still a little bit under the weather, but we're pushing through. It was questionable coming into the show, but we got the upgrade to available. So I'm here for the run. Going to power through. Very interesting slate, like you were talking about, all kinds of moving parts that we're gonna get into. Definitely feels bigger than a 6-game slate. We've got several big stars still questionable. We've got Embiid still out, obviously. So yeah, tons of stuff to get into and break down here.
Yeah, Embiid still out. Giannis Antetokounmpo questionable injury management. I think, what is it, like a leg or a knee? Like, are they actually going to put a body part on it? Luka's questionable too. They are playing the front half of a back-to-back. This game's at home. Tomorrow night's on the road. My first guess is that Luka plays tonight and doesn't play tomorrow, but I don't know. On the other side of that game, Donovan Mitchell, speaking of illness, he's been out with an illness for a while. With 7-10 days, I wouldn't say he's expected back, but he was at shoot-around today, which is a promising sign. Officially questionable. It is the last game on the slate, too, and it's a 5-gamer. There's 6 games. 5 of the 6 games a lock. 8 o'clock, and thankfully Cleveland Dallas is not like 10 o'clock, 10:30, but it's an 8:30 game, so it's kind of sort of somewhat a bit of a sprint slate. Dylan Brooks is out for Houston tonight, and I was thinking that maybe that could be a few more minutes for Eason, Tari Eason, but he's also questionable.
Yep.
Yeah, he's. Did you watch Houston play? Tari Eason? It's wild. He gets all these. He's a lot of fun, but I think he's also terrible at the rim, which leads to him getting a lot of offensive rebounds. Like, he can't finish at the rim, so he just gets a bunch of his own terrible shots. But he's super active, 100% guy, all out. He's a fun player. He's somebody you want on your team for sure. He's dealing with that leg, so he's questionable. I think if he plays, he probably jumps in the starting lineup, or at least nothing else, he would get a boost in minutes. We're projecting Jayshawn Tate to start. Okay, that's interesting. Do you have a thought on that? I thought that maybe Eason would get the start.
I think they do like him off the bench. So I agree. They start somebody like Tate, but it's really Eason that gets the minutes bump. But his energy off the bench is just kind of what he brings to the team, that 100% effort guy. Anytime they come out flat or something, they put him in there, and he definitely provides a spark. So I think they want to keep him in that role, and I agree with our projections that Tate will start.
The front half of the back-to-back, we talked about Dallas being in the front half. There's several teams in the back half. 12 teams playing tonight. 1 on the front end, Dallas. There is 5 on the back end of a back-to-back. That's Orlando, Washington, the Nets, which leads to their shenanigans. The Rockets and the Thunder. Kuzma's questionable with his quad. We'll talk about the Nets in a second. Yusuf Nurkic expected back tonight. Tim Hardaway Jr. also questionable with an illness. I think that's the big ones per se, as far as what we're monitoring. But there's some little stuff out there. Jingle and Joe Ingles, who really cares? But big picture. I guess Brooklyn. Do you want to give a little bit of tease as far as Brooklyn? We both tend to agree that there's a wide range of outcomes for Brooklyn, right? Because they ruled out Nick Claxton, they ruled out Cam Johnson, they ruled out Dinwiddie, and then there's Mikal Bridges. Who failed for us yesterday in the squad ride. I don't know. Were you a part of the squad ride yesterday, Keith? Were you?
I was, yes. And he caught the hook on his points prop. Tough scene. Missed a couple of free throws down the stretch, right?
you're rounding down. He missed his last 4 free throws.
Yeah,
and not a couple. Yeah, he's an 85% free throw shooter. He missed 4 straight. I'm not, I went to UCF. I didn't major in math. I'm not a math guy. Like I feel, but that feels highly improbable. How do you go 0 for 4 being 85% free throw shooter? But that is what happened, and that was my selection in the squad ride. Do join us. Do hang out with us in the squad rides. RotoGrinders.com/Discord. It's been positive. It's a fun community as well. We get to tilt it or get a celebrate. The pick is in. Kirkwood. I nominated Kirkwood today. Kirkwood's pick is in currently. I don't know if you're on board, but it's Melton and assist. I'll tell the people. I'm not going to tease them. I'm not going to make them go, but join us in the Discord. We have assist over for Melton. The absence of Embiid, not a great assist matchup, not a great matchup overall, but the number's still kind of low. But yeah, the Bridges thing and his Iron Man stuff, right? Like he wants to. I guess he's the only person that cares about the Iron Man streak. Everybody rests otherwise. No chance. I don't want to say no chance, but basically no chance of catching AC Green. AC Green's 1192 for his career. It's basically Cal Ripken. It's not going to happen. But I think he just wants to play, and maybe they play him like they did last year. They played him the entire first quarter last year for 12 minutes of a game, similar situation, same coach, and then he didn't play the rest of the day. And now, the weird thing is it's happening like now and not 3 months from now. I feel like that's what had happened last year. But again, it just feels pretty fishy that maybe he just kind of plays halfway. And I'm just thankful I'm not on the projection team, Keith. I don't know if you did projections tonight. I need to work on it. But I would have a hard time putting a number on it, a median projection for Bridges, because I can see him playing 12 minutes and I can see him playing 37 minutes, and I have no idea. So fun conversation.
Yeah, it's definitely impossible to predict, and I don't think that we can make that assumption on the projection team and just guess what a team is going to do. But you're definitely right that there's something fishy going on here. They did it twice last year. That game you mentioned where he played the whole first quarter basically, and then did not come back the rest of the game. I believe that was in March, and then they did it at the end of the year as well, where he literally started and then just came out of the game. You cannot do that any longer this season in the NBA. They put a rule in place where you have to play 20 minutes for, I don't know if this is like just for stars. We were talking about this a little bit. We're not completely sure on the rule, but he definitely qualifies this. You have to play 20 minutes for it to count as a game played. So I think you're safe to see a floor of 20 minutes, but that might be all you get, is just something to note for sure.
Dude, shout out David in the chat. Says he was at the game when Ripken broke the streak and his brother played in that game. So there you go. Wow, that's pretty cool. I remember he took like a victory lap like around the stadium at in the 5th inning when the game became official. Can't remember the official number. Derek above him saying, didn't Ripken choose to? Yeah, I think he chose to end the streak because he was just in a massive slump. And he eventually just said, yeah, it was distracting and he wasn't playing very well. If you want to put your tinfoil hat on, I don't think it's true. I think it's been debunked, but there is this theory that I want to throw this out there. There's this theory that Kevin Costner may have slept with Kyle Ripken's wife, and Kyle Ripken left the stadium to go beat up Kevin Costner, and then somebody broke the lights that night, and that's why the game was canceled. I don't think that's true, but it's a great story. I don't think it actually happened. Have you heard that before or no?
I've heard the story. I don't have any idea if that actually happened or not.
Apparently the lights just were not working at Camden. Yeah. Like somebody just said, okay, like Cal's not going to be here. We got to keep the streak alive. Let's just kill the lights. I don't think it's true, but there you go. All right. Hey, everybody else in chat, hit that like button. Do subscribe. Do join the conversation as well. Plenty of time to get comfortable. Again, we're here for 2 hours. We yield the crunch time in about an hour and 10 minutes or so. We'll dig in more as far as Brooklyn, but that feels like you got to get that right as far as the slate. It's and I don't know, are you leaning a certain way or you want to tease, because that's not our first game, but I don't know what to do. And the other part is like, well, if Brooklyn's playing all these games, Giannis is officially questionable. He doesn't need to play. It's a road game. He doesn't need to show off for the Brooklyn fans. And he's dealing with something that's kind of legitimate, like kind of nagging him. I think it's his knee, right? It just sort of pops up, and like, why wouldn't he take the day?
I actually looked.
Is it calf?
I looked it up. His calf. Yep. And I think he missed a game about a week or two ago with this same injury. So it is something that has been legitimately bothering him. And he's been playing a ton of minutes lately. I believe he played 39 minutes on Christmas Day. So like that would not surprise me at all if we see Giannis sit this one out. And that would make me even more cautious on the Brooklyn stuff for sure.
So we just got the nonsense for Orlando ruled out. No Jingle and Joe Ingles, no Gary Harris, no Jonathan Isaac. None of those players individually matter, maybe collectively, but not really, right? How many minutes are they actually going to? No, I don't. It's going to Anthony Black night again. Maybe
that's what I was going to say. Anthony Black is coming off the best game of his career. I don't know if he's going to take that many shots again. I believe it was a career high in shot attempts. Yeah, 13 shots. And he's a guy that typically takes like 4 shots in a game. If we see another 30 minutes and 12 to 15 shot attempts from Anthony Black, that's super interesting.
Let's see. Anthony Black last night at 38 DK points. He absolutely smashed. He was super efficient. I wouldn't assume that's going to repeat, but maybe people want to chase it. He is a rookie. I think he close to a lottery pick. When was he drafted? I think he was close to a lottery pick. Not a college basketball guy.
He was in the teens, I think, but I'm not sure exactly.
Yeah, like theoretically, he should be getting better and ascending as the season progresses. But all right, yeah, projections he will be on top of that. Ingles, Harris is kind of meaningful because he plays 20, 25 minutes or so. He was projected for 22. Isaac was projected for 13. Ingles 14. So I guess Caleb Houston would get a bump. Not that you want to play Caleb Houston necessarily, but
Anthony Black was the 6th overall pick. That is shocking to me. I would have went way over on that. I thought he was like 13, 14.
Yeah. I knew he was a lottery pick. I didn't know he was 6. Yeah, I would have went over on 6 as well. I thought it was around 12 or 13. Yeah. But okay. Yeah, maybe. Again, I guess there's some promise he's supposed to be good at some point. Maybe he's good now. Cat is questionable. That's for tomorrow. We don't care about tomorrow, but that's good to know, I suppose. All right. Anything else? Give me the big picture as far as this slate. Like, big picture is Brooklyn and trying to figure out what Brooklyn's going to do. The other tricky thing is, like, they still have a bunch of bodies, right? It's not like it's like, oh man, those guys are all out. They got to play these 4. Nope. They have a bunch of other dudes. Some of them you never heard of.
All their G League guys are available, right? So like the overview is there's a ton of stuff that we're still waiting on. We already have huge news with Embiid out. Giannis is questionable. Luka is questionable. Donovan Mitchell is questionable. Kuzma is questionable. So those are some really big names that we're still waiting on. Like you said, the slate is all early today. Last game locks at 8:30. So we should get a lot of this maybe when we're on the show here, but if not, then definitely on crunch time. But there's going to be a lot of moving parts as we go through the show here. Definitely paying attention to what's going on in Brooklyn. They have ruled several guys out already. Finney Smith is still questionable. And Michael Bridges potentially is only active to keep his Iron Man streak alive. But that is kind of narrative-y and hearsay. So do with that information what you will. But do not be surprised if Michael Bridges does not play his full allotment of minutes tonight.
Yeah, and my thought is, like, I'm going to get under if he's going to be popular, and like I assume he's going to be popular because the projections are going to be really good on Bridges, because you can't project Bridges to play 12 minutes or 20 minutes, right? You can't. I don't think you can do that. It's tough. So I think that's my stand is I'm going to be under on Bridges. We do have some if-then set up, by the way. We have for no DFS, and he's not going to play, right? That's like the biggest. Come on, Dorian Finney-Smith's not playing tonight, right? Like, I don't know why they didn't roll him out from the start. I just don't think he plays. But
yeah, I mean, there's no chance that I don't think this version of the Brooklyn team can keep up with Milwaukee if Giannis plays. So, like, what's the point? Is kind of where I'm at on the whole situation. I think DFS sits for sure.
We also have one in case Giannis happens to sit, and also in case Kuzma happens to sit. We'll share those as we go along. Okay, very first game. Let's go ahead and skip Philly or Orlando. Give the projection team some time. Maybe we can get a refresh with the new updates as far as projected minutes, with Orlando rolling out 3 of their fringe players. Toronto is taking on Washington. 240.5 is the total. I say skip. They're both 7 o'clock games. I said Philadelphia, Orlando first. 240.5. That is a big boy total for sure. Toronto on the road here in Washington. We know Washington's terrible. They're a home dog, about 8 points or so. 240.5. That is a monster total. Who's in and who's out in this game? Well, Toronto is fully healthy unless you want to count like Garrett Temple. That doesn't really matter. We're expecting Gallinari to be back from his rest, and DeLon Wright, he's got a rest on the back half of a back-to-back for Washington. Kuzma is questionable. man, Scotty Barnes, Pascal, both look spectacular. I think all 5 starters for Toronto are playable. I think you can play Gary Trent. I think you can play Achua. Like, if you want to get goofy and ambitious, I think you can play 7 dudes on Toronto. I was going to say Malachi Flynn, but probably not. Well, do you change up your play, Keith? Like, you're on crunch time. I imagine that's a little bit trickier when you're, making lineups up to the bell as opposed to, working until 6:20 or so. Do you enter lineups differently, or is it always the same? And what are you doing tonight? What's the plan of attack as far as lineups?
Yeah, I do generally cut back a little bit when I'm on crunch time, just because, especially if there's news pending, it's really difficult to get a 20 lineup build that I feel really comfortable about, unless it's a night where I'm like fading the first set of games and I have 30 minutes to rework my lineups after lock. But yeah, I generally cut back a little bit on crunch time. We've got the full 20 going today, though. Plenty of time after we get off the show here that I can feel good about a build before we hit the lock.
All right, let's talk about Toronto, Washington. Let's talk about Toronto first. Barnes versus Pascal. Do you have a preference amongst the two? Barnes a little bit more expensive. He's been better point per dollar on the season, distinctly better than Pascal. 1.35 per minute for Barnes, 1.12 for Pascal. Pirtle is solid. Schroeder has been fine, but not spectacular. OG, it feels like a good OG spot. It feels like a good spot where you can get like 4 or 5 or 6 stocks. That's kind of when you get those peak OG games against a team like Washington. It's pretty careless. Defensively they're super vulnerable as well. But do you have a preference amongst Barnes and Pascal? Could you play them both in the same lineup?
So Washington is the best matchup in all of basketball. They play at the fastest pace in the NBA, and they're last in defensive rating. So I want to target multiple pieces from this game. I don't feel like Scotty and Siakam get there together all that often. So I think I'm separating those two tonight. They certainly could both get there in this matchup, but they're both catching a little bit of ownership. I want to save some roster space for Milwaukee, Brooklyn, and then there's some really contrarian games later on in the slate as well. So I'm probably going to end up right about the field on both of them. I do prefer Barnes, but he's coming with more ownership as well. He's found a ceiling a little bit more often than Pascal has this season. It's a great spot for both of them. Just it's a slight preference for Barnes for me, and it's just I think he has the higher ceiling at this point, which is weird to say. Schroeder, I think, is a guy that I can fade. It's rare that he's burned us this year. He's been chalked several times because for whatever reason he's been pretty fairly priced. He does find a ceiling occasionally, but I feel like he's a guy to fade. OG is the one I want to be overweight on. Really liking the ownership number I'm seeing on DK specifically, where I'm looking right now at 13%, 13.5, basically. Think he gets plenty of run. It's a great matchup for Pirtle as well. Like you said, I think there's 7 guys in play here. I don't think I'd do the Malachi Flynn thing. Like you're chasing a blowout at that point, I think. But certainly the starters, every one of them is in play, and I don't hate the precious call. Probably Gary Trent is another guy I'm probably out on. Just hasn't seen the minutes this year, and is very, very shot making dependent, which he's not. Like he's been in a little bit of a slump this season. So I'm probably sticking with primarily the starters and maybe sprinkling in Precious, even with the field on Scotty and Pascal on Schroeder.
I would just give the shout to Trent specific on FanDuel, 4.9 DK, 4.5 FanDuel. I think that's a pretty good price on FanDuel for Trent. The ownership reflects it as well, right? Let's see. I was looking at just before the show. Let's see. Ownership got a refresh at 5 o'clock. So right at the bell, I did hit refresh. Yeah, Trent is getting a 23% ownership expectation as of 5 o'clock on FanDuel. Not nearly as much on DK. If Kuzma plays, do you like Kuzma as a run back? And then what if Kuzma doesn't play? Then what's the plan? I know we have an if-then. I'll pull it up in a second. But let's just entertain the idea of Kuzma playing in the back-to-back.
Yeah, if Kuzma is playing, he's definitely viable. The other guy that I have a ton of interest in either way, even if Kuzma is in there, is Tyus Jones. Like we've seen his minutes tick up a little bit here recently. He played 33 last night. Maybe he gets cut back a little bit because of the back-to-back, but like it feels like they're willing to push him a little bit more here. The price at 6,600, I think is very fair. We saw him put up 43 DK points last night. So just an interesting note there that Tyus Jones is getting a little bit more run. If Kuzma is out, it's Jordan Poole enters the conversation as well. Another guy who's minutes are bumping up here. He's going to have to take a ton of shots in this game. Kuzma is around a 30% usage rate on the season. So Jordan Poole could potentially be in like the 35% usage range in this game if Kuzma misses.
Yeah, efficiency is the second question, but yeah, the usage will be there for sure. Yeah. If Kuzma's out, there's no like clear DK values, but they're pretty neutral. Poole would be a 37-point projection on DK, 35 on FanDuel. Gafford 30-point on DK, 32 on FanDuel. Denny Avdia around 31 or so, and then Tyus Jones 31-30. The Jones thing, like coming into the season, he was massively disappointed. Why is it his minutes were kind of down? He wasn't very good when he was out there, and like you said, he's picked it up of late. And I feel like this is kind of who he is, and it took him a while to find himself. The second best backup point guard in the league behind Jalen Brunson for a couple of years. I always thought of him as that guy. Like, he's the next best point guard. Like, if given an opportunity and given a chance, he could lead an offense. Not the best offense, but he can lead an offense. Yeah, I think he's the interesting route to go. But do we have a history as far as back-to-backs, and how much does Washington care about that? That's my only concern. You kind of mentioned it too. He played 31 last night. What are we projecting him for tonight? 30. Yeah, if he plays 30 minutes, it's interesting. The matchup, obviously, versus Toronto, not spectacular. But also, if you're playing a couple Raptors, I don't mind the run back. Your favorite player on Washington, if Kuzma is out, I know you threw out several names. Did you say who your favorite was?
My favorite is Tyus Jones if Kuzma misses. Gafford is interesting. Like, he's another guy whose minutes have been up recently, just not a guy that I trust. I don't know. I don't play Gafford hardly ever. I think the matchup is fine for him. I think the price tag is fair. And if he's going to play upper 20s minutes, he's very much in play. But I think if Kuzma gets ruled out, Gafford becomes pretty popular, and I end up under the field on him.
Yeah, I don't trust Gafford either because he goes to the locker room so much. It's just like he comes back sometimes. It is interesting because you're looking at players similar kind of around him. Pirtle is 5'6" in the same game, right? Lopez is 5'8". If Giannis gets ruled out, Lopez he'll get elevated. Nurkic is 7'2". Bobby Portis, I guess you probably play him more likely a power forward, but again, he's in play, but he's very much in play. If we lose Giannis, Lively is 5'5". I guess as always, there's kind of like a collection of centers around the 5-ish, 6-ish K area, and I wouldn't really know how to prioritize him. I think he's fine, but I don't know. I'm probably with you, or I'm likely to be under on it. I don't like to lose those precious, or just kind of take up the precious center spots. Perfectly fine, but I don't think he burns me is kind of what I'm getting at. Like, what's the chances of Gafford putting 45? I guess it's possible. I don't think it happens.
He's done it in 2 of the last 3 games. He had 55 a few games ago. He's been playing really well.
Yeah. Yeah.
You do see those 20s mixed in there with those ceiling type games. So I'm with you. I feel like there's enough upside at other places at the center position where he would not be a priority for me.
Kuzma game time decisions. That's a worthless update. Just looking at Gafford's. Yeah, last game he was 6 of 7 with 5 stocks, 13 boards against Orlando too. Tough matchup. He played 23 minutes the previous game versus Golden State. That looked like it was a blowout. And against Portland, he crushed versus Portland. But he also crushed versus Phoenix. I think that was with Eubanks, though, if I'm not mistaken. I think that was it Nurkic? It might have been Nurkic. Not sure, but yeah, I guess maybe I'm wrong to say he doesn't really have the ceiling often enough.
Yeah, so Craig in chat said they limit Gafford on back-to-backs, and I was just looking at his last 2. He did play 31 minutes on the 21st, and then the 22nd he played only 23 minutes. So there might be something to that Washington's going to be a little bit more cautious with him in this spot.
Yeah, either they limit him or he limits himself by right. Again, his locker room visits. Okay. Anything else as far as Toronto, Washington, or shall we move on?
I mean, you can, if Kuzma gets ruled out, I think you could enter Denny Avdia and potentially Kispert or Koulibaly into the conversation. Like Koulibaly and Kispert, you're going to need it. Like, they wouldn't be targets for me. Avdia would be the priority there, I think, even though he's a little bit more expensive. He just does a little bit more on the peripheral that I like Avdia if Kuzma's out, but I don't know. None of them are like primary targets.
I'll do another one, by the way. A much better play on FanDuel, 5-7, 6-5 on DK. Just looks much more appealing over on the dueling fans. Okay, we got Philadelphia, Orlando, 228 is the total. Orlando is a 2-point favorite at home versus Philly. We know there's no Embiid. Otherwise, Philadelphia is fully healthy. Batum is out. Okay, sure. I guess I should acknowledge that one. But Orlando, no Fultz, Ingles, Harris, Isaac, all ruled out. I think we gave our projection team enough time to tinker with the new Orlando minutes. Let's give it a refresh. I believe we got a refresh. Okay. 37 for Wagner. That's Franz. Bancaro 37, Black 30, Suggs 30, Anthony 26, Wendell Carter. Yeah, the Wendell Carter thing is it just not happening?
Wild, man.
Yeah.
Like,
I thought those minutes would creep up.
Eventually they're going to. I think they're just being extra cautious, and I'm not going to start chasing when I think he's going to start playing 30 minutes again. It will happen eventually, but it's been long enough now where he's been in the low 20s where we just kind of have to assume that's what he's going to play.
Yeah, and it's also a back-to-back, so it does not seem like the spot where it's going to spike up to like 28 or 30. Right. So that's kind of where I'm at too. We did jump up Caleb Houston's minutes. Not that you're going to roster him, but it's 18. Wagner, the Mo variety, 16 minutes. Gogo Batazzi. I guess they introduced Okiki. I don't know if he was projected for any minutes before, but now he's going to be delegated 12 according to our projection team. Again, not rosterable, just trying to figure out where those Ingles and Harris minutes went. Orlando is going to be relatively unowned, right? The matchup last night was prime. This one's against Philly. It's not as sweet. It's certainly you can get to it, especially if you're getting heavy minutes from Franz Wagner, Bancaro. The Black thing we kind of already touched on. We're probably not chasing that. Unless something changes, we're not seeing any ownership at all. Basically, everybody in the single digits for Orlando. Do you agree with that? Do you think there's one outlier you might want to be over the field on?
So I wish I could know the ownership number for Anthony Black, because I am a little bit interested in chasing that. Like we talked about it a little bit already. 6th overall pick in the draft, just has not had the usage this season. So you look at that projection and you're like, why on earth would you want to play a guy projected for 18 points or 19 points? But when you're doing projections, you put in like a season rate for the guy. Anthony Black on the season has a usage rate of just over 12%. That was his usage rate in the last game was significantly higher than that. If we had him projected at like a 20% usage rate, his fantasy points would look a whole lot better. So like the Black projection, I think is going to be low across the industry. And I do think he stays low owned. So I might have a little bit of interest in chasing that. I'm pretty confident he's going to play the minutes. The thing that is concerning to me, is he going to have the same type of usage? I think you're making a bit of an assumption there to assume that he's going to get double digit shot attempts again. But if he's under 5%, I'm taking some shots there.
22% usage last night. Yeah, I'm curious to see if it's an outlier as well. But yeah, I do agree. Like if nobody's going to play him, everybody's going to do like, well, that was just fluky, right? There is some draft equity there, and maybe he's going to be good one day, and maybe he's starting to ascend right now before our eyes. Let's jump over to the Philly side. The Philly side is more interesting. From a DFS perspective, the lack of Embiid, that sort of clears the way for a ton of usage, ton of shots, ball handling, everything to go around the Philadelphia side. Maxey expected to get a lot of it, but he's going to get a fair bit of ownership as well. Currently, actually only 13% on DK. He fully flopped last game. I think he took maybe 20 shots or so and only made a couple. Yeah, he was 4 of 20. I watched that game versus Miami. It was rough, and he had a couple like salvage threes at the end too, where it wasn't nearly as bad as it could have been. But the usage was actually the usage was pretty low, 22.3%. That's not that high. I thought it'd be higher than that, to be honest. And I expect it to be higher tonight. I'm expecting kind of a bounce back game. We saw Melton was really good. We saw Oubre was really good. The minutes were lovely, right? 39 minutes projected for Maxey, 37 for Harris. I'm not sure if it's still a revenge game. If it is, revenge game number 14 or so in his career against the Magic. He really hates Orlando, obviously. Kelly Oubre, 32 minutes, which might be light. I could see him exceeding that. Melton, 32. Paul Reed, 24. He was super handsy last game. Shout out to Nick Nurse letting him play, but he got 4 fouls in the first half. I love when coaches let their players get their 4th foul in the first half. Like, Let them foul out on their own. Don't foul them out like intentionally by sitting them on the bench. And then we saw Mo Bamba just smash. He was incredible against Miami. And speaking of revenge, this is a legit Mo Bamba revenge game. I don't believe he likes Orlando. I think there was a falling out there. If you want to play that angle, I'm curious, Keith. 4K. He wasn't fully bumped up. 4K. He's only projected to play 16 minutes. He's not a guy that plays a ton of minutes historically. But, you can tell yourself a story about Bamba if you want to tell. By the way, he might start. There's a chance he starts instead of Paul Reed. There's no guarantee Paul Reed starts tonight. Probably starts, but no guarantee.
I think,
give me your overall.
It's definitely up in the air with what they do at the center position. Bamba played really well. So it wouldn't surprise me to see them make a change there. It's a tough thing to project, which means it's like if you feel that Bamba's going to get more minutes than Paul Reed, adjust those projections. I definitely wouldn't. You can't play them both together in the same lineup, but I want exposure to both of them. I think one of them has a pretty solid game here. They're both fairly priced. Whichever guy plays the low 20s minutes, I think is the one that you want. And I think that it's very volatile. Paul Reed could get in foul trouble again, even if he starts and the plan is for him to play 26 minutes, he could get in foul trouble and only end up with 16 again. So I definitely think you lean into that a little bit. Reed is low enough owned that I still want some exposure there, but Bamba is definitely somebody that I want to be over the field on. The starter, like the rest of the starters, very much in play. The minutes are going to be huge, like you were talking about. No Embiid, who does so much for this team, massive usage rate. His assist rate is way up, hence the bet on DeAnthony Melton assists today. We took the over there. Philly is great. The fact that Maxey busted in the last game, I think keeps him a little bit more owned. I would say at this price, he's going to be significantly higher than where he's projected. But I do think the field will be a little bit tepid with how poorly he shot in the last game. And shooters are streaky. So I'm fully on board with Maxey. Get me way over the field on him.
Can I say something? I know it's controversial. The DFS community loves Paul Reed. They always want Paul Reed to play. Fantasy community loves Paul Reed. Can I say that he's not as good a fantasy player as people think he is? Did you know what he's averaging? And I'm about to put you in a spot here, and I'm kind of framing this. What do you think he's averaging per minute on the season, Paul Reed? Fantasy points per minute.
So I know he's had a rough year, and he's been better in the past. I don't know. I would guess that it's right around 1 fantasy point per minute this year. I think he's been well above that in the past.
It's 1. Yeah, exactly 1. 1 fantasy point per minute. 0.99 when Embiid's off the court. I don't know if they played much together anyway. I kind of ran the old court IQ on it. Have they crossed together at all this year? If they have, it was minimal. I think that was something they talked about in preseason. They try to make work in preseason, but I don't think it's happened often.
No, it has not.
Okay. Yeah, that's look, and yeah, Reed was better last year. Just I think he might be a little bit we want him to be a little better than he actually is. This is kind of what I'm getting at. Maybe I'll be proven wrong on that one. By the way, Mo Bamba in 111 minutes without Joel Embiid, and he's also a guy that probably hasn't played alongside Embiid at all. I'm guessing. You want to guess what his fantasy points per minute is in the season? No, he only plays like 3 minutes a game, or whatever it is. Not a lot, but if you extrapolate it,
give me a 1.4 on Mo.
Ooh, man! If the Price is Right rules, it's a great guess. 1.39. So
went over though.
Yeah, it's a great guess though. Maxey 1.28, usage bump with the absence of Embiid, 6.8% for Melton, 6.8% for Maxey, 4.4% for Oubre. But yeah, all that usage to go around. Melton, Maxey, Oubre, they all take advantage of it. Let's see, Melton gets 0.3 more DK fantasy points per minute. He seems like, as far as that, biggest bump that way. Philadelphia rules. Do you have any rules as far as the Sixers you want to prioritize? You want to rank the Sixers for me? They all look pretty appealing. I know you stressed how much you like Maxey. He's obviously the most expensive, but he's at the biggest ceiling. Like he could put up a 60 spot. Sure. Yeah. I think that wouldn't surprise any of us. He could put 40 points in the bucket. That wouldn't surprise us. Can you power rank the Sixers?
Yeah, Maxey is my favorite. I will go Melton second. Man, Oubre is a tough one for me. Like he could play a ton of minutes in this spot. He also could completely flop in this spot. Like he's very shot dependent. If he's not making shots, it could be a rough go. So he's a little bit lower for me, but that ownership is pretty tempting also on him. It's going to be Maxey, Melton, Tobias, Oubre, and then I'm going to have more Bamba than Reed, I think.
We got Steve in chat telling us Reed is starting. I've not seen that official. Again, that's the most likely scenario. I'm not saying that's not happening. TJ says it too. Okay, so I guess it was announced somewhere and I've missed it. So my bad. I don't see the official starting lineup for Philadelphia. It's not.
I think it was just the pregame interview. Nurse said that Reed would start.
Okay, gotcha. All right. Well, that's worth. But you still can play. He can absolutely get outplayed in this game by Bamba. It wouldn't surprise me. Yeah. Are you putting? I'm sure you're putting a cap, like no more than one of those in a lineup.
Correct. No more than one of Reed and Bamba, and I think I want to play no more than 3 total in my lineups, just because there's other good spots. I think it's very possible 4 could get there, and 4 guys could find a ceiling at these prices. But because there's other really attractive stuff on the slate, I think I'm limiting Philly to 3.
Yeah, I would also add, and you tell me, like if you're doing that rule, definitely for Maxi. Like if you're delegating, if you have Maxi, then definitely not. I don't want 3 more. You know what I mean? So
yeah, yep, that's fair. Because if Maxi's getting there, he's doing so much. Like he probably has 30 plus points, and fills up the stat sheet. So agree, it would be more difficult for guys like D'Anthony Melton to get there if Maxi's going off.
There is the news. I was not on the. I'm trying to multitask. My bad. It's on the Twitter. Paul Reed, is going to be the official starting lineup for Philadelphia tonight. Or Maxi, Melton, Oubre, Harris, Reed. We didn't get the official lineup, but I would be shocked if it's not that. All right, just trying to see is there anything else going on. Eric's asking about Wendell Carter. We already talked about Wendell Carter. And then True North says that's an easy X for me. I think that's an X for you too. I'm not playing Carter. Are you playing Carter?
Yeah, no chance.
Teeth Mello, since when did a YouTube chat become unofficial? Yeah, my bad. Who am I YouTube chat has never let me down. So my apologies for thinking that somehow there could be some incorrect information there. We got Tim in there hanging out. What's up, Tasteful Tides? 14-game NHL slate. If you guys are playing NHL tonight, good luck with that. They haven't played like in 3 days or so everybody gets to play this evening. Moving on here from Philadelphia, Orlando. Anything else that we should stress? Anything else we should say?
Nope. I think we can move on.
Okay, this is I think it's the most important game on the slate. Milwaukee, Brooklyn, high, pretty tight. 240.5 is the line. It's a big boy total. Milwaukee is about a 7-point favorite for now, at least. It's changed throughout the day with the news of Brooklyn ruling out, 3 key pieces. No Nick Claxton, no Cam Johnson, no Dinwiddie. We know Simmons and Walker are out. DFS, Dorian Finney-Smith, he's got a knee, so he's officially questionable. And then we kind of touched on it earlier. I know people join us throughout the show. Maybe they didn't catch us at the beginning, but we kind of touched on the Mikal Bridges situation where there seems to be a scenario, and we don't know, and it's possible, it's played out before, where he just wants to keep his Iron Man streak alive, and he plays the first quarter or 12 minutes or 20 minutes, and then he's just kind of done for the day. It would be kind of odd to do it this time of year, but they played a lot of minutes yesterday. But if Bridges plays his normal minutes, and I'm not here to make anybody paranoid, Keith, right? Because certainly he could play 36 and put up 55, and if you don't have him, go to bed. I don't know. And also Cam Thomas is another guy who looks pretty interesting. Certainly he's going to be taking a ton of shots for as long as he's out there, and I guess he's going to play a lot of minutes, but I don't know. And there are other pieces like Day'Ron Sharp. He had some good run yesterday. Feels like Royce O'Neal is pretty safe. I think he's pretty safe. If you want to get goofy, like Trendon Watford, I think he's one of the goofy angles if you want to work on Brooklyn. If you're thinking that like they're kind of throwing this game away, Watford, a pretty good fantasy minute player. Maybe he can play 20 minutes or so, maybe 25. If this game gets ugly, he probably bops. But let's talk about Brooklyn first, and then the Giannis situation. Maybe we'll get news. We're probably not. He's officially questionable. Jay Crowder is out officially for Milwaukee. But can you walk me through the 97 different scenarios for the Brooklyn Nets tonight?
Yeah. So if we just take it and we assume that the main guys who are playing are going to get full run, Mikal Bridges looks amazing. We kind of broke down the Iron Man streak and Brooklyn playing a little shenanigans with him in the past. Last season, they had games where he just played the first quarter and then did not come back. Another game where he started and just left. But It feels like they're just trying to get their guys rested today. And I think the news that's still pending in this game, it's going to shape my decisions on how I'm playing this. If DFS sits, obviously there's even more minutes to go around. Watford would be in play for me in that situation, even if we assume that the starters are playing full minutes. The Giannis questionable, I think, is interesting as well. Like, if Giannis sits, does then Brooklyn say, oh, wait, maybe we can win this game? And they pivot, and now Bridges is playing 38 minutes all of a sudden again.
It's a cat and mouse game.
It absolutely is. And I think the teams are going to play a little bit of cat and mouse here as they come up to tip off as well. So I don't know. It's really hard to break down at this point. I need all of the information before I can definitively say how I'm playing it. I am concerned that if Giannis plays, that Bridges just plays 20 minutes and he's done, because they're not going to stay close in this game. And then I would be looking into the blowout angle there. Like, I think Watford is a great call. Even guys like Jalen Wilson could enter the conversation at that point at minimum price. Armani Brooks has gotten a little bit of run here. I think he could be in play. Like, if you're playing that blowout angle, it's so hard to figure out how we're playing this at this point. Guys that I feel good about regardless of situation: Dennis Smith Jr. and Royce O'Neal and Day'Ron Sharpe. I think all three of those guys should see significant minutes in this one. Like, Royce has not played the massive minutes that he was used to playing all last season even. So I think he's fresh, well-rested. They're going to get the minutes out of him. Sharpe should play at least what we have projected here at 22. If Dorian Finney-Smith sits, I think there's way upside on that. Like, he's probably going to be projected around 26, 28. And then I think there's even upside from there if Finney-Smith is out. So I feel pretty good about Day'Ron Sharpe. It's Bridges and Cam Thomas that I have the most reservations on, obviously. And Bridges more than Thomas. But even like, if they're only playing Bridges 20 minutes, they're probably getting blown out. And therefore, that probably means Cam Thomas isn't getting his full run either. So we'll see what news breaks before tip-off here. Definitely monitoring it. And I'm very hesitant to play Mikal Bridges and Cam Thomas.
Yeah, I'm always hesitant, but like to say just the game's going to blow out, because it's a 7-point game. And if it's a 7-point game, the starters are out there. And if you think the game's going to blow out, just like take all your money and go to Vegas and double it down, right? I know you're not going to win a GPP that way, but you double your money if that's like your official take. I don't mean you, I mean like the generic you, right? And I think it probably does has a decent chance of blowing out if Giannis is a go.
Dorian Finney-Smith out. We kind of assumed that was coming, but there it is.
Okay. I ran a court IQ with no Simmons, no Cam Johnson, no Claxton, no Dinwiddie. I kept DFS in the court, like whatever. He just kind of stands in the corner. I was trying to see if I can get something. You know, sometimes if the samples are so small, the more guys kick off the court. But Cam Thomas sees a significant usage bump, 7.2% usage bump. Watford 2.8%. Bridges only 1.1%, which I thought was kind of interesting. Pretty small. You know, and not even not playing alongside, you know, Dinwiddie, Cam Johnson. I thought he'd be a little bit more alpha-esque. Not really. And that's in 87 minutes. The samples aren't going to be massive. But are we going to get updates on anything? I guess we're not going to get anything else. When do we get news on the starting lineup for Brooklyn? Does it come after 7 o'clock? I think that's kind of important.
Yeah, it's going to come out at like 7:05.
So, like any sort of tiebreaker, are you pushing it to the later player? If it's like, you know, Philly versus somebody in this game, you know, Toronto versus somebody in this game, or somebody in a later game, is that a kind of an unofficial tiebreaker? Is to play the later player or not? Is that have you got to that point yet?
I don't think on this slate, like the Giannis news, I really want to know the Giannis news before I decide what I'm doing with Brooklyn. Hopefully we get that before lock, but I'm not. It's not certainly no certainty that we will. So yeah, I guess if we don't get the Giannis news, I would kind of push my decisions into the 7:30 window for sure, because I think if Giannis sits, I know how I'm playing this game, and that would be to fade Bridges and Cam and just lean into all of the rest of Brooklyn. Although then there's that other angle where I said, if Giannis sits, do they think they can win this game? And then maybe that's the situation. This game is a mess. Yeah.
I mean, you know, you figure just like knowing hoops, just knowing ball would be good enough to win, you know, DFS. You got to have all these different angles and like it work all the different possibilities. You mentioned Jalen Wilson. What should I know about Jalen Wilson? I see he's not a good fantasy point minute player. least I don't think he has been. But there's a chance he could play 20 minutes or so. There's a path for something like that. And he's still minimum 3K. Give me the plan. Like, under what scenario are you playing Jalen Wilson? If you think Bridges is not going to play, basically.
Right. Well, I think Bridges is playing 20 minutes, so like you have to factor that in. But yeah, you'd be playing for a blowout in that scenario, and I would want Jalen Wilson with guys like Armani Brooks and Trendon Watford. I definitely wouldn't even want like Royce O'Neal in that type of lineup.
And again, it's where they have 12 guys. There's 12 guys they still have on this team. Now, I don't think I know who Noah Clowney is, but he's a person who will be wearing a uniform and is available to play basketball this evening for Brooklyn. I've heard of Harry Giles. He was a once upon lottery pick for Sacramento. But yeah, I think Watford's like my favorite amongst these guys, but I don't know. Ownership's going to be on Sharp, right? The 49% per day are on Sharp. That's sneaking up on nobody. And that's just 22 minutes. He's a fantasy point better player, if not more than that, on the season. 1.26. I was shorting him. He's very, very strong fantasy point per minute wise. DSJ is getting 41% of the ownership for Brooklyn. That's Dennis Smith Jr. We're giving him 30 minutes. And Royce O'Neal, 33% owner. He's like the shakiest amongst those three to me, just because he's Royce O'Neal.
I think his minutes are super secure, though. So, like, he's playing 30-plus minutes in this spot for sure.
That's a good point. Yeah. And again, we have 37 for Bridges, and not trying to say you shouldn't play him, but I don't think I'm playing him. We'll see. And Cam Thomas, he's got to score. He can put 30 points in the bucket for sure. And Milwaukee, well, I should touch on the if then.
Hold on. Cam Thomas could put 50 points in the bucket here tonight. Like, that's not out of the range of outcomes.
He's done that before,
you're
right?
selling him short a little bit. He has a 50 ball in his bag. Yep.
What was that scenario? Was he the only guy alive on the court? I can't remember who he was playing with, but it was similar, right? There was other guys that were out, I'm assuming.
No.
I knew it happened. He had several games in a row where he put like at least 40 in.
He was scoring 40 a night there for like a week last year at some point during the season, yes.
Yes. So yeah, 30. It's like, oh yeah, of course he's putting 30 in. Like he's projected to put in 30.
You know when it was? It was right after the trade. So Bridges and all the guys that came from Phoenix were not active yet. That's exactly what it was.
And then Bridges showed up and he's like, okay, I'm the alpha. I'm the captain now. And he just started shooting everything. Lillard would jump off the page if Porzingis. If Giannis Antetokounmpo is not available, we're giving a 52-point projection for Lillard on DK, 49 on FanDuel. He would look spectacular if there's no Giannis. Middleton would look really good. His minutes restriction is like almost basically gone, right, Middleton? I think he played 32, 33 last time. We're giving him 30. Even in 30, he looks really good. We're giving Portis 30. He'll be a positive value. Lillard, Middleton, Portis, all three would look great. Rules-wise, if Giannis is out, what's the rules as far as Milwaukee? How much Milwaukee is too much Milwaukee? Can you play all three? Lillard, Middleton, Portis, even Lopez is fine?
I think you can play three. I would definitely run it back with a couple Brooklyn pieces, which you're probably doing anyway. I think you could play 5 players in this game, 3 from one side and 2 from the other. And I'm totally fine with that. It's a small enough slate. Should be if Giannis is out, I think there's a much better chance this game stays close. So yeah, I think you could play 5 players from the game. I totally agree with you on the Middleton thing. I think like 30 minutes is kind of the floor now. I think 32 minutes is very much in the range of outcomes. I don't know if they push him much beyond that, but feel really good about the Middleton minutes. But yeah, I don't have any rules about who I would play. Maybe Portis and Lopez, I would limit that exposure together. But I think it is fine to play them together if Giannis is out. They're both cheap enough.
They're asking who starts for let's see. They're asking about the Brooklyn starting lineup, right? Who would be starting for DFS? We're projecting DSJ, Dennis Smith Jr., Cam Thomas, Mikal Bridges, Royce O'Neal, and we're projecting Day'Ron Sharpe to draw the start. This is news to me. According to Derek is saying, was he a member? No, wait, what they're asking, was he on a show called Too Hot to Handle on Netflix? It looks like a reality dating show. I was not aware this happened, but maybe. This does not sound like you're
not my wheelhouse. No, definitely not my wheelhouse.
There's 5 seasons of Too Hot to Handle. On the shores of paradise, gorgeous singles meet and mingle. But there's a twist. to win an enticing grand prize, they'll have to give up sex. Well, there you go. AC Green would have smashed this. He definitely would have won Too Hot to Handle. It's a callback to our pre-show conversation.
Indeed.
Okay. I don't know if he was on that show, but all right. I don't know if he won or not, but congratulations either way. There's too many reality. I mean, look, if people like him, by all means, enjoy yourself. But it seems like there's too many reality dating shows. Didn't Travis Kelce have one like years ago on E? Didn't Kelce have one?
You're way over my head at this point, Dean.
I think it was called like Catching Kelce. Am I wrong to say that that's what it was called? Am I making this up? I don't know. The people let us know in chat for sure. I think it's time to move on from Milwaukee and Brooklyn, but I think it's also fair to say quite possibly the most important game on the slate to figure out, to get right. Final thought before we move on and talk about the last three games.
Let's see if Giannis plays is really my main thing. And then I have to figure out what I'm doing with that information. If Giannis is in, I feel like Brooklyn's getting blown out, and I probably play it that way. If he's out, does that mean that Brooklyn thinks they can stay in this game is my concern.
TJ clarifying that Harry was not on Too Hot to Handle. Who would make that up? It seems like a ridiculous thing to make up. It's so like random that like, of course that's got to be true, right? Like who would just make that up? But I guess somebody did. Okay. Phoenix, the Suns are in Houston. Reports are, I don't know if we're sitting down or not. Durant, there's already trouble in paradise with Durant. He's not happy playing in Phoenix. Actually, that's your, I guess you're not only your adoptive team, and you're a Bulls guy, but you know, do you hear local news, local papers? That's like a thing of the past, but you don't listen to local sports talk radio and people trashing Durant, I'm guessing. But
no.
Do you hear rumblings about Durant? Is there already a falling out, or is Woj exaggerating as far as what's going on in Phoenix?
I pay attention to nothing locally, so I've seen the same Twitter stuff that you have.
Yeah, I'm the same. Like I'm down in South Florida in the Miami market, and I catch some local Miami stuff, but there's a lot of it. You know, I don't listen to I was yelling at my friend the other day because he tells me he drives like an hour and a half to work. He listens to sports talk radio. I'm like, have you never heard of podcasts? Like, he's like, what? What? I'm like, you don't have to listen to like the old guy talk about like, you know, this one play for an hour and a half. Podcasts are fun and interesting, and there's a lot of different topics. Okay, the Suns take on Houston tonight. We are getting Nurkic back. He had a personal issue. I don't know what it was, but hopefully everything is all good with Yusuf Nurkic. Beal obviously still out. Okogie should be good to go with his ankle. Houston, we saw Dylan Brooks get hurt last night. Tari Eason's got that leg. Sometimes they rest him on a back-to-back. He is currently questionable. Alperen Şengün, all-star, right? All-star? Are we debating this? He's an all-star.
He's got to be. I mean, he just keeps smashing. Like, I think he is. It's always so hard to say you think a guy is, though, and then you start trying to find 12 names, and you have to leave out, like, so, yeah, I think he squeaks in, but it's closer. Like, you look at his stats, and you say, of course he's an all-star, but then you start looking at the other 12 guys that are on the team that he would have to overtake, and it's a lot closer than you think.
I'm just going to call him an all-star. I'll leave it to somebody else to kick somebody. I don't want to red tag anybody's locker, but you're right. That's the fair point. Like, people say, here's 27 guys that are all-stars. It doesn't work that way. These guys all got snubbed. Like, do you understand how math works? You can only have so many. Somebody's got to get snubbed. It's like, you know, the 64 basketball teams going to well, somebody's got to get snubbed. You can invite the 200 teams, and one team's still going to get snubbed because of the 201st team, and they got screwed. Okay, they lost the right to get absolutely walloped by Duke in the first round. I'm getting off course. Talk to me about Phoenix and Houston. Let's start with Şengün. How do we feel about Şengün tonight and the Rockets?
Yeah, I mean, I feel really good about this game, actually, and I'll get to that a little bit more on the Phoenix side, but I want some exposure here. Like, it's really low owned, and Houston is shorthanded without Dylan Brooks, and that's part of the main reason, actually, why I have some interest in Phoenix. If Tari Eason is out, I think you can do some weird things here. We'll have no idea what this rotation looks like without Dylan Brooks and without Tari Eason. So, I mean, a guy like Amen Thompson, on DK only, I don't think you need to try this on FanDuel, but on DK at 3,300, who knows how many minutes he's going to get? Are they really going to run Reggie Bullock out there for 20 plus minutes in that scenario? I don't think so. So maybe Amen Thompson comes into play. He looked pretty good last night. Obviously, he's still very young in his career. I don't know. It just feels like they're starting to try to work him into the rotation a little bit. So I definitely wanted to mention him. Şengün at the top. I didn't mean to bury the lead. I totally agree with you. He's a fantastic play. Just a guy that if you're making more than, I don't know, 5 lineups any night in the NBA, you want some exposure to Şengün. He just does everything for this team. He has a massive ceiling. He's been playing plenty of minutes. Like, we loved him last year too. He just wasn't getting the minutes. That's not a problem this year. So love Şengün. Van Vliet, I don't know. I don't necessarily need exposure to him. If I happen to need a point guard at 8,100, I'm on board with that. I'm not going to kick him out. Jabari Smith's been playing a ton of minutes, and they would be super secure if Tari Eason were to miss here. I just don't know that I'm paying 7,500 for him. Jalen Green been all over the place this year. I don't think I'm getting there, but love Şengün.
Mostly bad.
Yeah, Jalen Green has really been mostly bad. Jason Tate in the starting lineup is interesting, but if Eason is active, I don't think I can do it. Eason out, I think you can start to take a look at Jason Tate for sure.
Yeah. And the minutes, by the way, for Jabari Smith, like, if we lose Eason, like, they can potentially jump like 37, 38 or something like that.
Yep.
I know the price is really sky high now at 7.5. But you mentioned Reggie Bullock. I guess, did I just forget he was on Houston? I never know he was on Houston. Maybe I never knew he was on Houston. But yeah, I see he's projected to get 10 minutes or so. You think Tate, if he starts and Eason is available, and Eason doesn't start, Eason probably closes, right? Over Tate, most likely.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
We've seen FEV kind of have a couple of rough games in a row. I thought he was going to get a bounce back one against Indy last night. It did not happen, but he's another guy. They just play him into the ground. 38 minutes is a projection. The projection is awesome, and it's why Şengün is another guy. I know it's a back-to-back for Houston, but we have seen him play 35, 36. We're only giving him 32. As far as the Phoenix side, not a lot to love here. Certainly you could play Durant. Certainly you could play Booker. If you want to play Nurkic, you can. Houston's a tough matchup. They play pretty slow. I don't really like anybody
without Dillon Brooks. That's
a good
my
point.
angle.
That's a good point.
Dillon Brooks is an elite perimeter defender. Like, they're definitely taking a hit to their defense tonight. They've been one of the best in the NBA up until this point, but a lot of it is because of the addition of Dillon Brooks, and Fred Van Vliet is definitely an upgrade as well, and he's still there. But losing Brooks is interesting. Like, Brooks would have guarded Devin Booker in this situation. That probably falls on Jason Tate now. I have a lot of interest in Devin Booker here.
So Booker or Durant, you prefer Booker amongst the two?
Yeah, I think he's the one that gets the matchup, like upgrade, downgrade, however you want to say it. But his matchup is significantly better than it looks like on paper if you're just looking at Houston's defensive stats.
By the way, if you're to trust our ownership projections, this stuff obviously is super fluid, and there's a lot of news up in the air. So, grain of salt, yada, yada. We'll do our best to get that right or as close to right. But I'm seeing Durant at Booker. Let's see, this is as of 541. Did I see Booker like 2% ownership? That's on a 6-gamer. Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, Durant at round 2, Booker. Yeah, it's
like, I'll play some Durant
lineups.
Too.
Yeah.
I'll play some Durant too, but like the matchup for Booker, I think is going overlooked. And I think, like, on paper, Houston looks great defensively. Van Vliet's still there, but if Booker is the guy I really want here.
Did you get any of that Chimezie Metu season? He was awesome in the absence of Nurkic. Now he's 5K, and obviously Nurkic back, he kind of goes to bed. But man, I did not. Were you smart enough? Were you sharp enough to get some Metu during those? Was it a game or two? He was really good.
Well, last game he played 30 minutes out of nowhere. He was playing like 13, 15 the 2 games before that. So I don't think anybody had Metu.
Yeah, 50 burger against Dallas. That was the one game where he just completely annihilated. That was where Landell, I guess, was pretty bad. And I think even, if I'm not mistaken, Metu started the second half. He was playing so well. And okay, anything else that should be said here? Like, it doesn't take much to get over the field. Obviously, you're talking about if you're making 20 lineups, just one lineup, you're probably over the field with both Booker or Durant. Fair to say you're not going to play them in the same lineup. You'd set a rule. It probably happens organically, but you're probably not going to play them together. Yes?
Correct. Yep.
Okay. Anything else we should say here as far as Phoenix and Houston, or shall we scoot along?
Let's scoot along.
Chat, hit that like button, please, if you don't mind. Kindly hit it, smash it, caress it, whatever your adjective of choice happens to be. help us keep the lights on. And if you want, hey, if you're feeling frisky, turn on notifications, do that. And, that helps us keeps the light on. We do appreciate that. New York is in OKC. 241 is the total. OKC is in the back half of back-to-back. It is high and tight. Pretty big total for New York. I guess that also speaks to, you're talking about Dylan Brooks hurting the defense for Houston. The absence of Mitrov. Mitrov has significantly hurt the New York defense. Hartenstein now stepping in as their center. Sims hurt too. 241 is the total. OKC 4-point favorite here. New York is fully healthy with the exception of those two bigs. OKC is fully healthy. Everybody's good to go on the back-to-back 6-gamer, and this one's going to be, for a 6-gamer, mostly ignored, especially on the OKC side, especially like SGA, who, by the way, is like 10-5. And this is one of these points I've been talking about for a while, is like the studs, the stars, have like the best price, the best tags.
Yeah.
It's just, how do we get to them? Like in the old vacuum, SGA at 10-5 and like Jabari Smith at 7-5. SGA is so much better play. But of course, salary cap concerns, it's hard to get there sometimes. So I think we can, if you want. If you want to get to SGA, you can. How much do you want to get at SGA? The field apparently just not. Less than 10% we're seeing right now. And just OKC in general, not getting much ownership. We'll jump to New York in a second. But give me your thoughts on the Thunder.
I have a lot of interest here. It's the ownership numbers, and it's exactly what I was just talking about with the Houston situation, losing one of their top defenders. Mitchell Robinson has been out for a couple of games here for the Knicks, and I had to check this because I assumed that this would be the case, but I wanted to verify it. What do you think the Knicks defensive rating is it's 8 or 10 games, something like that, since Mitchell Robinson has been out of the lineup? You're on mute, Dean.
Unbelievable. Yeah, so I checked it a few games ago, so I'm not fully up to date, but I would say their defensive rating is like 24th.
21st.
Okay.
So, I mean, and you look at the Knicks and you think they're a top defensive team. They've been a bottom 10 defensive team without Mitchell Robinson. So this is a much better matchup than we assume that it is. If you're not factoring that in, SGA at 10-5 is very, very intriguing to me.
Last 7 games, New York 9th fastest pace and OKC 4th fastest pace. So maybe a sneaky fast game too. Yeah, and the bad defense there for New York is pretty interesting also. And the low ownership, right, on the OKC side. Beyond SGA, where else can we really go? Holmgren, is certainly interesting, especially when he gets things going from a stock perspective. I don't know if this is a great stock matchup necessarily. There's not much else beyond that I'm interested in on OKC. Giddey is just not getting enough minutes anymore these days, somewhere in the mid-20s, which is sort of subdues his upside. But Thunder, it's basically SGA. I guess if you want some Holmgren, sure, but one guy for me.
Yeah, I'm pretty much the same. And just like Mitchell Robinson is their rim protector, SGA is the guy that takes the ball to the rim. So like it's what fits the weakness now, I think. SGA is the guy. Jalen Williams, maybe you could make a case for. Just don't love the price tag on him. Feel good about the minutes, even with Giddey back. Like Jalen Williams is clearly going to get the run. I think you could take shots there, but it's SGA primarily for me.
Giannis Antetokounmpo will play, which I thought that was like a true 50-50. I didn't really have a call on that, but that's good to see. Now, what does Brooklyn do?
I was going to say,
counter. Yeah.
The Bridges fade more scary or less scary? Because there's more blowout risk certainly now, but there's also a chance. Like, I think it makes the Bridges fade less scary for me.
I think so too. But if you're playing Giannis, don't you kind of want Bridges out there to keep the game closer, to force Giannis to play 34 minutes?
Or Cam Thomas because he's scoring 50 points.
So just walk back. How much do you like Giannis? And obviously, guys like Lopez and Portis are not as appealing. Doesn't mean they can't get there, but their chances are, thwarted. But how much are you prioritizing Giannis now in a game that, even though it's a 7-point line, and again, 7 points, 3 minutes to go, the starters are still out there, they're still fighting. How much does that affect your, plays on the other side for Brooklyn?
Giannis is not a priority for me. I just talked about two studs that I absolutely love, Devin Booker and SGA. So that's where I'm spending up today. I might not have Giannis at all.
Okay. So just like play the Brooklyn stuff and mostly like the ones we feel good about and maybe a couple of the fringe Brooklyn stuff if you tell yourself a story. But Milwaukee, if you're not playing Giannis, you're probably not playing anybody in Milwaukee, basically. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, I mean, it's maybe a guy like Malik Beasley who's cheap. Like that's not comfortable. I don't even know that he gets extra run in a blowout anyway. Maybe Bobby Portis would be my look there to get a couple of, like, give me 3 or 4 extra Bobby Portis minutes in a blowout, and I could see him getting there.
He's the last guy off the court, but he's not going to get full blowout run,
Correct.
right? If this game is blowout.
Yep.
How about New York? Talk to me about the Knicks. Randall getting 18% ownership, 8.5K. Brunson, similar price, different position, getting half that, around 10%, quickly in the middle at 13, 14%. Hartenstein is, if there's one vulnerability to OKC, they're a bad rebounding team. I think they're the second worst rebounding team in the league behind Washington. Washington's just like historically awful when it comes to, I could just stop there, period. But specifically, they're historically awful at rebounding the ball too. Like Detroit's historically awful, right? I was thinking of running an RG giveaway. If you could predict when Detroit wins next, I know maybe I'll run that on Twitter. Tell me who they beat and by how much. Like we'll run that on the Twitter machine or something like that. Yeah, got to get a tiebreaker. But I was looking at their schedule, and I mean, you never know. It's the NBA and things happen, but it's starting to get embarrassing. Every game they're chanting to fire the sell the team. What a mess.
Longest in history now, right? Their losing streak.
I believe so.
I think they just broke it. Yep.
Hang up a banner for that. Your thoughts as far as New York?
It's Randall and Brunson. I don't love that they're actually catching ownership here. I don't really have a preference on which one it is either. I'll make the group that if I'm playing SGA, give me one of Randall or Brunson, and whichever one fits the lineup, like I'll build out several and look through it and pick out the ones that I like the best surrounded around Randall and Brunson. But I don't have a ton of interest outside of that. I think you could play Hartenstein if you wanted to. Minutes should be really secure here. Sims is out again. Taj Gibson is there, but Hartenstein's going to be the guy that gets the run. RJ Barrett, never a guy that I like to play. He could find a ceiling here in this spot, I suppose, but really it's just Randall and Brunson for me.
Somebody said Taj Gibson revenge game. Would I just forget he played for OKC? It was a cup of coffee, right? Wasn't long if you played for OKC.
I don't remember that one at all.
I think it happened though. Like now that the power of suggestion, I'm like, yeah, I kind of sort of I feel like that might have happened. I don't think he did much. I don't know what they did not retire his number in OKC. It's not hanging in the rafters. The last game of the slate, Cleveland and Dallas, 231 is the total. Dallas is a 3-point favorite. We don't know about Luka, currently questionable with a quad. I think he's going to play. Speaking of 50-point games, he put up a 50-point game on Christmas. You saw him at the end of the game, like Kyrie was joking around with him. He's hanging out on the bench. I don't know if you watched the game or not, but like, it's just a management thing. I think he's fine, right? Like he certainly can play through it. He didn't look, he played to the bell last game. Tomorrow night they play on the road. Tonight they're at home. I think there's a chance, just kind of guessing. Don't know, but if he's going to rest, he probably rests tomorrow and not tonight. THJ, Tim Hardaway Jr. has got an illness, so he's questionable. They did elevate Josh Green to questionable. And then there's Donovan Mitchell, who hasn't played in a while, almost 10 days or so. He's got an illness, had an illness. He was at shoot around. My guess is both these guys play. LeVert is questionable. Obviously, Garland, Mobley out. So Cleveland's they're thin, but they've been thin for a while. Is that your read as well? Do you expect both the studs to play this game?
Luka for sure. Did we get the let him know tweet from Spider?
Good. Yeah. Good question. Yeah. Let me find his Twitter account. Yeah. That's like 99.9% accurate, right? Whenever he tweets out that, does he say let him know, or is it like the spider web? What does he tweet out?
I think he just tweets out the let him know with the calf symbol is usually his Steve in chat saying he has not yet tweeted it.
The last thing he tweeted out was on Christmas. That's still a safety. I'm guessing the Lamar Jackson play he was still thinking about. I'm assuming that's what happened there. Right. Yeah. Yep. But we do have to know. Somebody's got to be on top of that if he's tweeted out just yet. Spida. My apologies, Steven. I mispronounced that. But we'll see. Yeah, you're right. I guess we'll get that at some point. That's kind of his way of saying I'm playing tonight. But like, do the best you can with what we have here as far as the routes, the potential routes, Cleveland and Dallas. We certainly have the cheapies to make Luka work. I'm going to try to make Luka work more than 20% if he's 20% as far as the ownership. I think that's too low when you consider how insane he is.
Yeah, completely agree. I mean, he's just been smashing. Obviously, difficult matchup here against Cleveland. They're really solid on the defensive end. I like SGA and Booker a ton as well, but I still want to try to get over on Luka as well. That's why I'm probably not playing Giannis at all and just hoping that game blows out. Luka is probably number one on the slate. I mean, I definitely have Booker and SGA up there as well, but Luka, like, he has the ability to go for 90, like almost nobody else on the slate does. Maybe Giannis, but I don't think in this game environment with Brooklyn missing pieces. So yeah, I mean, give me over the field on Luka. If Hardaway sits, I have even more interest here, though. Exum is interesting. Been playing a ton of minutes. I think a guy like Derek Jones could potentially get there. I don't know. I need Hardaway out to consider anything else on Dallas, but Luka definitely a priority. We'll see what happens with the other injury stuff. I don't think Josh Green really affects anything if he's in there. Like, all he does is just kind of shave minutes from guys that I would want to play, like Derek Jones and Grant Williams.
We have an if Hardaway happens to sit, Luka just becomes his projection 66.77 DK points, almost 63 on FanDuel. It's completely insane. Revenge game for not they Exum anybody. 30 fantasy points for him will be his projection. I think Lively is interesting. He's interesting pairing with Luka because they sort of like work well together with the PNR, and he'll throw in those alley-oops. You get the assist, you get the bucket. Lively's got a chance to get a cheap double-double. So I don't mind him as well. As far as
Allen is the only one counterpoint to that is Allen's pretty good at protecting the rim. Like, Cleveland's very, very stout inside.
That is a good point. That's a good rebut. I mean, the absence of Mobley hurts them to some degree defensively, but they're still, Jared Allen, he can't shoot. And when you can't shoot and you're still playing meaningful minutes in the league, you're doing something else to help the team, right? There's so few players that can play meaningful minutes that cannot shoot in this league. And Jared Allen's one of them. So that's what he does. He locks down the paint. He's not getting any ownership. Nobody in Cleveland getting ownership. 5% for Allen. If Mitchell plays, certainly there's a chance. There's a path. You can tell yourself a story. Now, I don't know if he's been ill for 10 days. Is he 100%? Are they going to baby him a little bit? We're saying no. We're giving him 38 minutes right out the gate. We'll see. But nobody's playing Mitchell. Would you play a pinch? Would you play one? You can certainly make a Luka Mitchell and, get a bunch of cheapies around that. What's the strategy as far as Cleveland?
Yeah, maybe 1 out of 20. I would play Mitchell. Definitely way below my love for SGA and for Booker. So probably just have one in there to just in case he goes for 60 or whatever. I like pairing him with Luka. It's very expensive, obviously, but we've got the value earlier in the night where I think you can make that work. If he happens to sit in this game, the price tag on Craig Porter has come up a ton, but I have some interest there. Like, even if LeVert is in, I think Porter Jr. still has a chance to play decent minutes here. And we just saw the ceiling in that last game. I like the spot for him. So that's a name I have my eye on if Mitchell sits. If LeVert's still questionable also, right?
Yes, I should have said that. My bad.
Yeah, so if Mitchell is in and LeVert is out, I think Porter gets a decent bump here as well. I don't know if the price tag could be justified with just LeVert out, but Mitchell out, I have some interest in Porter Jr.
I'm running some optimals. I haven't seen how they changed as this show has progressed. I had some bells, some whistles, some restrictions as far as variance and all that. Going to report back on the top 4 or 5 that are hitting the optimal stuff. Let's see. On FanDuel, it's Day'Ron Sharpe, Dennis Smith, Royce O'Neal. So all 3 nets, 75%, 70%, 65%. And then some 76ers, Melton and Maxey. Maxey looks like the first big spend in lineups on FanDuel. 8-4 over there. Pretty good price. Really good price over there on FanDuel. And you know what? Jalen Wilson is actually hitting lineups on DK. His projection is 16-ish fantasy points at 3K, but I guess that's usable enough. Certainly there's some fragility to it, but that's interesting. I didn't realize that he would hit some of the stuff that I'm running. Sharp, the most popular guy. Sharp, Wilson, DSJ, again, 3 nets, then Melton, and then another net, Royce O'Neal. How many nets is too many nets? You put in the caps as far as Brooklyn? I feel like I probably won't have 4. 3 is probably my max. What do you got?
Yeah, 3 is my max as well. I think that's an edge in tournaments. A lot of people, like even running optimizers, will forget to set a max there, and then you're putting in too many guys for all of them to find a ceiling and then reach the top of a tournament. So I definitely get aggressive with that. I think in a value situation like this, 3 is the most I would go.
The only counter to that would be like you can have 4 really cheap nets, right? If you want to run that route. I think that's the only way you can argue against it.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Like if you want to play the blowout angle and play 3K nets or 4 3K nets, I think that is a good counterpoint.
We got Kevin Roth coming in. We got the Taylors, TJ Zwarych, Taylor J. Zwarych, Taylor Smith. Roth, welcome. Wednesday night. It's a 6-gamer. Luca, did you watch your boy Luca on Christmas? Did you stay up late enough to catch that?
No, I was gassed, but he's pretty good. He's pretty good.
You might want to. Well, he's officially questionable, Roth. Just so you know, tonight, and it's the latest game of the slate. Although it's 8:30, so maybe you'll stick around. You'll be good to go make any changes. But your boy Luca certainly on the slate as well. How are things otherwise? Feeling good?
Things are good. Life is good, and I think a 6-game slate is that's right where we like it, right? The Taylor and TJ, you like that size?
Love a 6-game slate.
See, so we're about to dominate this content, Dean.
Yeah, well, I'm curious to hear myself and Keith. We talked a lot about Brooklyn and Roth. You're gonna want to pay attention because there's a lot of potential routes with the Nets. None of which has anything to do with knowing ball or just. I'm curious to hear Taylor's thoughts, TJ's thoughts, see what kind of routes they're going because there is some potential shenanigans. It kind of smells in Brooklyn tonight. Want to get their thoughts. Keith, give me the player before we step aside and get out of here. Make way for crunch time. Who is breaking the slate? Who are you taking a stand on?
Ooh, this is between 2 for me. Give me SGA.
Who is the other one?
Devin Booker.
Yeah, and they're both like 5% owned. I love. Yeah, it's not hard to get over on both of those if you're running multiple lineups out there. That was Keith. I was Dean. The FanDuel sponsor Crunch Time. You got the Taylors and Roth. Roth, take it away.
Good stuff. As always, welcome to it, ladies and gents. It is indeed Crunch Time. Sponsored by FanDuel, joined by 2 of the sharpest minds in the biz. Got Taylor in the house. What up, Taylor?
Not much. Nice little 6-gamer like we were just talking about. Still some news to wait on, so could get wild.
Okay. And we got TJ as well. TJ Taylor mentioned some news to wait on, but there's already been a lot of news as well that's dropped that is slate changing kind of news, right?
Yeah, lots of it throughout the day. We got obviously a bunch of guys out for Brooklyn, no Embiid. But then, like you said, still waiting on some stuff with Luka. It's going to be a fun little slate. We got a ton of value for it only being 6 games.
Okay. Well, looking forward to diving into it. Taylor, can we start with almost a quick rewind to about this point last night? We got Vooch out. We said Drummond was just a straight up must play in any format. Can't fade him. Got to do it. Where do we stand with Embiid out and Reed in? Like what level of confidence are we in that play compared to where we were at this time yesterday with Drummond, who, by the way, dropped like 60 freaking fantasy points?
Yeah, it's not to that level. Reed is a good play. He is starting again. Burned a lot of people on Christmas, but it was trouble related in a way. I think the story tonight is Day'Ron Sharp, just because Claxton's out for Brooklyn. Dorian Finney-Smith is also out, so we're projecting him to start at center. Should see plenty of minutes for them. Reed actually kind of falls by the wayside a little bit as a result of that, at least in cash. Wow. But
okay,
if the ownership's going to skew heavily towards Sharp, then Reed looks like a great tournament play for sure.
Okay, I just assumed that was like the can't miss play of the night, so I'm glad that I started there. Well, let's just kind of walk through it, dive into a FanDuel build if you'd like, or you can tell me what news we are crucially waiting on before we get into it.
Yeah, so Luka's the big one, of course. I think he'll play. That's a pure guess. He's got a quad. Obviously played quite well the other night. Donovan Mitchell and Karis LeVert are questionable on the other side of that game. Kyle Kuzma for the Wizards is questionable as well. And then Tim Hardaway Jr., Tari Eason are 2 more that we're waiting on. So all of it matters. We'll see if we get some during the show, but The biggest news, of course, so far is the Nets situation. They are at Milwaukee, or at home against Milwaukee. Cam Johnson is out, Dinwiddie's out, Claxton is out, Finney Smith is out. So that's 4 starters down for them. That's where you're starting in cash and in tournaments, honestly. Mavs legend Dennis Smith Jr. should start for Brooklyn tonight at point guard. Always been a good per minute guy, cheap. Milwaukee is a great matchup. Not too good defensively this season. He's 5K on FanDuel. I think you start there with cash at point guard. Tyrese Maxey with Embiid out. Kind of stunk it up the other night, but we shouldn't care about that too much. He's still underpriced for the role against Orlando. DeAnthony Melton is another guy you can play at either guard spot. Without Embiid, he gets a big boost, especially in usage. Great play in all formats. 64 on FanDuel, cheaper on DK, but viable everywhere. Other shooting guards you can play. Cam Thomas should see tons of usage with all those guys for the Nets out. There's blowout risk, of course. They're playing Milwaukee, but he already leads the team in usage, even with everybody in. So phenomenal play, especially if you think the game stays close. Mikal Bridges is a guy that is a candidate to hit the bench early if the game gets out of hand. He played 40 minutes last night, but should see plenty of usage if that game stays close as well. Shifting to small forward, Franz Wagner's in play here against Philadelphia. Royce O'Neal, another net, popping into some lineups, I think, on FanDuel. Tobias Harris, another big usage guy for Philly with Embiid missing from the lineup. Power forward, Scotty Barnes looks great. Julius Randle looks great if you can spend up. Siakam is another decent play. Do prefer Barnes if it's one or the other, though. Banchero's fine. Don't love it, but totally cool with that. And then at center, it's just Day'Ron Sharpe, and that's really all you do in cash.
Okay, easy enough. TJ, let's bring you in. Tournament takes on FanDuel. Do we start with Brooklyn and the shenanigans afoot, as Dean mentioned there?
Yeah, we're still sticking with the shenanigans in Brooklyn tonight. The one thing I'll say with the like Paul Reed versus Andre Drummond, with Drummond point per minute from he's obviously not this as a real life player, but a point per minute fantasy player is essentially like Luka Doncic.
Right. Yeah. He's like two points per minute or something insane.
Yeah, whereas Paul Reed is just like a good backup starter.
He's a jag. He's just a guy. He's a jag.
Yeah. He's point per minute, it's nice. But Andre Drummond is a starter. It's like we've been waiting for Vucevic to finally sit one game for the last 2 years so we could get this. I had a ticket for the $2,500 Millie Maker on DraftKings last night, and Andre Drummond was 95% owned.
Wow. Yeah. And somebody screwed up by it not being 100%, honestly. Why isn't that guy an actual starting center? Could someone explain to me? Anyone who can drop like 25 and 25 with 5 stocks, maybe should get more run? Maybe.
So in 1980, he'd have been the Hall of Famer. Right. Before that, he'd have been Wilt Chamberlain. It's just in today's day and age, his usefulness is not outweighed by the things he is bad at.
Gotcha. Okay. Fair answer. All right. Well, let's jump into this build here as we move through FanDuel GPPs. There's a ton of value, and I'm curious like what you're prioritizing and how you're going about this in general.
Yeah, so the 3 teams to me that are the biggest priorities are the Brooklyn Nets, the Philadelphia 76ers, and the Toronto Raptors. The Raptors are pretty far third because they're not like oh, wow, such amazing value, as much as they are just like, oh, this is a great matchup, and they got a 124 total because they're facing Washington. So they got the highest total on the slate. Dallas could put like the Dallas and Cleveland game. It would maybe have some potential to get to that point. But, oh, wow, we just got some big news. Kyle Kuzma is going to be in, but Gary Trent Jr. is going to be starting over Dennis Schroeder for the Raptors on tonight. And so Gary Trent Jr. is $4,500 on FanDuel. Does he now pop into the cash game discussion, Taylor?
I think he does. Let me just see what else at shooting guard. So Melton is a great play, but he's significantly more expensive. So you get a good discount with Trent. I assume the minutes will be fairly safe, and I'm assuming they're running Scotty at point.
Yeah.
Just Trent's not a point guard. I do think he's in play for cash. He kind of already was popping into some lineups, so you can definitely get to him in cash for sure.
All right. So yeah, now that I think even makes Toronto a little bit higher because Schroeder was for somebody who would have the ball in his hands a lot. And now that makes Barnes, Siakam, and Trent all look a lot more interesting. Maybe even Pirtle. For what it's worth, people asking, like, do we know if Schroeder's out? We don't know anything about him being out. They haven't said that. They're just saying that Trent is in the starting lineup. So I'm assuming Schroeder is still going to be playing. He is now just going to be coming off the bench for the Raptors instead of as a starter. But yeah, the Nets, 76ers, and Raptors, those are the three priorities. Dallas and Cleveland kind of looked like they would be if a bunch of these players get ruled out, but Cleveland especially, I think for me, it's just I'll have some interest in Donovan Mitchell if he plays. And if he doesn't, I don't care because they're all priced up and really expensive now. So I feel like I can kind of just ignore that side. The Luka Doncic stuff is obviously a lot more interesting, but I am getting most of my exposure to those three early games. Paul Reed, Daron Sharp, Scotty Barnes, Gary Trent, Melton, Smith Jr., Royce O'Neal, Kelly Oubre, Jakob Poeltl. All of those are my highest owned players today, and they all come from those three games. Mm-hmm. If I go all the way down more, there's Luka Doncic and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and nobody in more than 20% of my lineups outside of Luka Doncic and SGA that is not in the Toronto, Washington, and Brooklyn game for me today. So that's kind of where I'm going about it.
Okay. Do you want to go position by position here, or do you want to hold that off until we get to DK?
Yeah, let's hold it till we it's this. I mean, no, I can do it now for both because sure. It's very similar, and we got the time. It's a 6-game slate. It's still 30 minutes to lock. So, point guard position. I'm looking at Shai Gilgeous-Alexander as my favorite tournament play on the slate. Tyrese Maxey, Dennis Smith Jr., both of them I think are good chalk. DeAnthony Melton would probably be the one I'd choose to fade on FanDuel just because he is priced up a little higher than I would want him to be. And obviously the 25% owned Dennis Schroeder now, we can full fade that in tournaments. SGA and Luka, my two favorite places to go in tournaments. It is tough to get there. So if you want to choose to get different at another position and just play Tyrese Maxey and Dennis Smith Jr., no problem at all with that today because those are like the clear top plays at point guard on FanDuel. So I'm looking to differentiate by spending up to Luka or SGA, or just stick with the chalky guys at the point guard position. Shooting guard Gary Trent, obviously very much in play now, $4,500. He's going to get steamed up more, but I think he's still a strong play here regardless. Just be wary if you're playing a chalky lineup elsewhere. He's probably going to be pushing like 40% owned tonight. Cam Thomas is probably my favorite dent on the slate. I'm worried about blowout risk a little bit, but he's the type of guy that can put up 50 real points today. So still interested in getting to some Cam Thomas. OG Anunoby, another Raptor that I'm totally fine playing in this spot. And then, of course, you got your Philadelphia players. DeAnthony Melton is fine, but I would way rather play Kelly Oubre for $500 less at less ownership. Mm-hmm. Small forward position, Scotty Barnes, I think, is probably the top play on the slate now that he is the confirmed starting point guard that should have the ball in his hands a lot more. And so he's 9,800 on FanDuel. That's tougher to get to, but I still think he makes for a fantastic tournament spend up. Royce O'Neal is chalk, but I don't think that's necessarily bad. But it's a lot of the same guys at shooting guard because I love Cam Thomas and OG Anunoby and Kelly Oubre, and all three of these guys you can play here at small forward too.
Okay.
Power forward position. Sorry, just getting some Maxey, Melton, Oubre, Harris, Reed. That is what we expected for Philadelphia. Power forward today. To me, this is like the grossest position on the board. Like we have Jalen Wilson popping as a potential value. Royce O'Neal is mega chalk. Julius Randle and Tobias Harris. Players I never really like playing all that much anyway, and they're all the highest owned guys today. I don't love it, and so I I'm like Scotty Barnes and Pascal Siakam become my two favorite guys here by a fairly wide margin, just because of how gross the position is. Giannis Antetokounmpo, nobody's going to play him because he was questionable all day, and now he's playing in a great matchup, and they have the highest total on the slate. And so Giannis, I think, makes for an interesting tournament play as well. And then if he plays, Tari Eason is somebody I always like getting to in tournaments. If he doesn't, then I'll be more inclined to play a $3,800 Jayshawn Tate.
Okay, excellent. Keep rolling.
Center position, it's Day'Ron Sharpe 1, Paul Reed 2. After that, nobody is going to be chalky at all. So you can play whoever else you want in tournaments, and they are going to be low owned. I don't really think it's going to end up being 65% Sharpe and 9% Reed. If that's the case, then Reed is just so much better in tournaments than like Reed is just a phenomenal tournament play, and Sharpe is horrible at those ownerships. I think it'll be a little closer together. I think it's going to be more like Day'Ron Sharpe 50%, Paul Reed 25%. But I do think those two, I think the projections have it spot on that those two will occupy about 75% of the center ownership today. Some pivots I really like: Derek Lively, Jakob Poeltl, Isaiah Hartenstein. They're all fine, but they're all just a little bit more expensive. And so you need them to just like straight up outscore them from a point per dollar standpoint. I would rather just have a bit of a different construction. So either maybe going somebody all the way up to a Alperen Şengün, going all the way down in tournaments to a Mo Bamba, and just hope Paul Reed gets in foul trouble again, which he absolutely could. And so that's kind of how I'm looking to go here at the center position.
Okay, good stuff. We should note, by the way, this show sponsored by FanDuel, as I mentioned. You bet $5 on any money line with the FanDuel Sportsbook. You get $150 in bonus bets if your team wins. For new users in Arizona, Colorado, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Kansas, Louisiana, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, New Jersey, New York, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, and Wyoming. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 and up. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Botch that read a little bit. It's okay. You can't shoot 100% at the stripe. I'm like a 98% free throw shooter here. Let's kick it over to DK and Taylor. Walk me through the build there. Maybe start by telling me what's different.
Well, you can play Gary Trent at point guard. It is otherwise pretty much the same. Paying all the way up to
Sharpe
Luka.
and Reed.
Yeah, that's true. You can also do that. I wanted to ask TJ real quick if you have a Mikal Bridges take for today, because the game could blow out. He could also completely dominate if the game does not blow out. He could also come out after 20 minutes if he just wants to keep his streak alive. Are you fading him?
I am underweight. I still have him in the pool because I'm playing 150 lineups, but he's one of my lower owned players. I have 10% just in case he goes off. I set some build rules where I want to play only one of Mikal Bridges, Cam Thomas, Armani Brooks, Jalen Wilson. And my thoughts there is basically like, I don't want to be loading up all these Brooklyn guys together, but one of them should probably do well. If it's a close game, Bridges is playing really well, it'll be Bridges. If not, Cam Thomas, I still think is kind of possible to hit in that mid-range of like, yeah, the Bucks won by 18, but the Cam Thomas still put up 40 points. I think that's a reasonable range of outcomes. If it's a mega blowout, well, then I want to get a piece of Armani Brooks and Jalen Wilson. So that's kind of how I'm going about it. For what it's worth, I have more Brooks and Wilson than I do Mikal Bridges.
Gotcha. That's kind of where I was leaning. I'm not super into playing Mikal Bridges tonight, but there's merit to him in tournaments for sure. Anyway, cash build on DK. Dennis Smith Jr. still a staple, of course. Day'Ron Sharpe still a staple. I would like to get to Luka if I can. Trent being another value makes that easier to do. That occupies all your guards or point guard spots at least, but it's a great way to build. DeAnthony Melton once again over here, better value on DK than he is on FanDuel. Looks great. Maxey gets squeezed for me. Like if I'm paying up for one guy, it's going to be Luka, but paying up for Maxey is completely fine as well if you're worried about Luka missing the game, for example. Let's see. Cam Thomas, great play as well, with all that usage for Brooklyn. Middleton, kind of fringy, but not a bad play. Minutes have been up a little bit of late. Shooting guard, small forward. I do like Oubre as well, only shooting guard. He's probably just more of a tournament pivot away from Melton, though, on this slate. Scotty Barnes, another spend that I'm inclined to build around along with Luka and cash, I think. Tobias Harris, you can also get to in the mid-range. Should see plenty of usage with Embiid out, of course. Royce O'Neal, definitely more comfortable in cash than in tournaments, but should see the minutes with Brooklyn down so many forwards and front court players. Jalen Wilson, I get it. He's 3K flat. We don't get 3K flat guys all the time that we can play, but I would prefer to not do that if you can avoid it. But if you're paying all the way up for Luka and for Scotty and for Tobias Harris, then I suppose you can get down to Wilson. We have Sharp popping in 100% of optimals and 150 lineups on DK. I understand that. For cash, 4,700 is a great salary, of course, should have a huge role. I like Pirtle. I think you can play Pirtle in cash if you're doing the double center thing. Randall is another guy that should fare well against Oklahoma City, a poor rebounding team. And Siakam, like I said earlier, I prefer Barnes to Siakam, but it's a good spot for both. And yeah, Paul Reed, if you do land there, is still fine for cash.
I kind of like this question from NR. This game being played in Brooklyn, do you think that changes anything for the team as far as like trying to get whatever starters they have in there longer? Or do you think at this point it's already a full punt regardless of where they're playing?
I think
I don't
they
think it
just
matters.
did punt on the game, yeah. So I wouldn't be shocked if they just benched Bridges if the game's completely out of hand.
Yeah. Okay. TJ, let's go to tournaments. And I wanted to run my lineup by you and just ask, like, is this the chalkiest build in history? And am I being a donkey? So can I just list the names real quick?
Yeah, leave out one just for safekeeping.
Okay. Like DSJ, Trent, Barnes, Royce, Dayron, Maxey, OG Anunoby, and another chalky dude.
Yeah, a little bit, but I mean, you're probably going to cash.
Right. I'm gonna hit that min cash, baby. I'm struggling to pivot to a guy like, yeah, I want to play Jalen Brunson, but there's only so many guard spots that I can use, and the value's too good. I'm struggling to find a reasonable pivot off all of these really legitimately good plays, just pivoting just for pivoting's sake. Like, where are you pivoting to get different in tournaments?
Who are you, Ross Geller? I've never heard someone say pivot in a
Pivot!
in a span of 20 seconds so much before. Yeah, so my biggest pivot today is basically I'm playing all of these chalky guys, but in my lineups I want to make sure I'm overweight on Luka Doncic and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and then I'm also overweight on a few of the uncomfortable value plays just to make it happen. But for the most part, like, it does feel like a lot of good chalk today. I think the route is just like, if you're in a single entry type thing, make one or two changes to the lineup, like get one thing in there and be like, hit that lineup optimize button in lineup HQ and find two ways to pivot off of that main lineup kind of thing. Because there are just so many guys popping in projections. But having said that, there are a few players so currently Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is projecting for single digit ownership. Keith was talking up Devin Booker a lot on the last show, who I also like. We're projecting for 2% ownership right now. That's kind of my path today, is I'm playing a lot of these mid-range to cheap chalky players like the Meltons, the Sharps, the Reeds, the DSJs. But then I'm also making sure to get overweight on the SGAs and the Devin Bookers, these guys that not as many people are getting to today.
And how are you choosing who gets cut from the chalk when you plug in that guy? Do you have certain dudes who are maybe on the chalky side that you're more underweight on? Or are you just kind of rotating, all right, here's my chalky build, I'll take this dude out, plug this guy in, and swapping it around?
Yeah, just kind of rotating. So it's basically like, if I'm playing Devin Booker, that probably means I'm not playing Tyrese Maxey because he's a spend-up option. And then maybe somebody like a Cam Thomas I wouldn't play, and I would go down a little bit cheaper to the Kelly Oubre's, the OG Anunobys, the RJ Barretts, those type of players in the mid-range to get off and then just spend up all, instead of in the high 8Ks to Scotty Barnes and Tyrese Maxey, go all the way up to the high 9Ks to Devin Booker, all the way up above 10K to SGA. We still have the salary to do it, but we're not seeing as many people get there today.
Gotcha. All right. Mind walking me through a DK build? I know it's very similar to what you did on FanDuel, but we most certainly have the time, still 17, 18 minutes until lock.
For sure. So point guard position, DSJ will be my highest owned player today. I got him in 43% of my lineups, followed by Scotty Barnes, DeAnthony Melton, Gary Trent Jr., Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Luka Doncic, Tyrese Maxey. That set of what is that? Eight players, 7 players is I have at least 30% of all, or at least 25% of all of them. DSJ, Scotty Barnes, DeAnthony Melton, Gary Trent Jr., SGA, Luka, Maxey. After that is just guys I'm sprinkling in, but still managing to get overweight on guys like Devin Booker because of how low his projected ownership is. I have 9% Devin Booker, which felt very easy to get to. Wasn't hard at all, but because he's only projected for 2%, I'll be massively over the field there. I got a touch of Donovan Mitchell. I got a touch of Damian Lillard, and even a scotch of Armani Brooks for Brooklyn, just in case that game goes ball.
Sure. Okay. Sorry,
Should I take you to the next position? I was trying to figure out what CB was trying to say there. I didn't get it either, but I agree. J3, smash the likes for TJ from Saskatoon. And again, Roth. I just had an above like a 40-degree Christmas day. I just had like a 40-degree Christmas day in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. It was wild.
It was 40 degrees here in Houston, and there could not be two greater climate discrepancies than Saskatoon, Canada, and Houston. That is amazing. I'm thrilled for you, bud.
It made it, and there was still just like a small amount of there was like frost on the roof, on the roofs and on the grass, and so it was still like a nice Christmas vibe. But the what the hell, Hammer? What a weirdo.
Yep.
I don't even think that one made it onto YouTube. I think that was we just got to see that in the StreamYard chat because YouTube auto moderated that one.
That's probably a good thing. Yeah.
Shooting guard.
Yeah.
The shooting guard position. DeAnthony Melton, Gary Trent, Kelly Oubre, OG Anunoby, Cam Thomas. That's the 5 for me at this position. It was 7 at the point guard. This is 5 to here. 5 shooting guard, DeAnthony Melton, Gary Trent, Kelly Oubre, OG Anunoby, Cam Thomas. I only have 4 other shooting guards in my pool, and they're Jayshawn Tate, Chris Middleton, Devin Booker, and Donovan Mitchell. Very small position pool for me here at shooting guard. 9 total guys in 150 set.
Okay, let's just roll all the way through here, and then we'll open up the QQs.
Small forward, a lot of the same guys. Scotty Barnes, Kelly Oubre, OG Anunoby, already mentioned them, but then we get the addition of Royce O'Neal, who should play a bucket of minutes as long as this doesn't get into too crazy of a blowout. I can't even be mad at J3 roasting me in chat. Good content, guys. Hard to believe Saskatoon just got internet last year. That's great. That's fantastic.
Yeah,
I got no rebut. That's fantastic. I like RJ Barrett a lot of tournaments today, coming in at single-digit ownership. Anytime he's below 6K, I like RJ Barrett. As soon as he gets into that 6'4", 6'5" range, I don't really like playing him because there's not much ceiling. But whenever he's below 6K, I'm all good. I like playing him a lot in tournaments, and he's currently projecting for single-digit ownership. Always like Tari Eason, like we talked about. I'm going to play Tari Eason whenever he's on the court. J3 asking again, speaking of Tates, can I rely on him in cash and single entry? I think if Tari Eason's out, you can play Tates and cash and single entry. If Tari Eason is in, I don't think you can go there because he's probably only going to play like 18 minutes.
Yeah. Okay.
Power forward, a lot of the same guys. Like, it doesn't really change for most of them. Royce O'Neal, RJ Barrett, Tobias Harris, Tari Eason, a lot of the same names. Somebody because of how mega owned Day'Ron Sharpe is today, I'm playing about 25% Trendon Watford. I'm still even on the field on Day'Ron Sharpe. I'm going to play like 60%, but I'm going to play a lot of Watford and even just a touch of Harry Giles at the center position as well. If this game goes crazy, I don't even think it wouldn't be that surprising to me if we get this starting lineup 1 minute after walk and Day'Ron Sharpe is not starting. Yes, they're heavily undermanned, but they've done that multiple times this year. That's actually the norm for when Nick Claxton is out, Day'Ron Sharpe doesn't start. And not only does he not start, but he plays fewer minutes than when Nick Claxton actually plays. Now, this is a bit of a different situation because Cam Johnson's out, because Dorian Finney-Smith is out, and so what they'd typically do is they'd go small. But they might just not play him heavy minutes because they're weird, and that's what they've done all season long.
Right.
And so we could end up seeing Trendon Watford in the starting lineup. And if you do, obviously he turns into a mega chalky play. But we could see similar from Sharp tonight that we saw from Paul Reed the other night. Massive chalk, 3 fouls in the first 5 minutes of the game, and he ends up only playing 17 minutes. So I think Watford makes for a very interesting play here at the power forward position. Pascal Siakam, another one I love for tournaments. I think we're going to see Scotty Barnes get steamed up a little bit, but Siakam should be still like less than 20% owned, which is not much on a 6-game slate, and I like him a lot for tournaments. Luka Doncic will play on Wednesday, so we just got that in. Center position, Sharp is 50% projected ownership. That's how much I'm getting. I'm getting just as much Paul Reed. I have a rule today set in line. I think just the field is really good now in comparison to how they used to be at not allowing recency bias cloud their judgment. This seems like an outlier. Nobody wants to play Paul Reed because he just played 17 minutes in his last start and he got into massive foul trouble. But this is just as this is still a great spot. He's still sub 5K and starting. And now all of a sudden he's going to be sub 20% ownership. So he's somebody I want to get to a lot in tournaments. I do have a rule that my utility will always be a center position.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So like 100% centers today. There are so many great point guards, so I'm not sure that that's actually a smart decision. But it's what I'm doing. So I'm also getting to Jakob Poeltl, Derek Lively, Brook Lopez, Hartenstein, and Holmgren as my good centers, or like reasonable centers that I'm playing. I don't know if I should include Isaiah Hartenstein in good centers. But then I also have some punch shots on Mo Bamba and Harry Giles.
I'm glad you mentioned Mo Bamba because for some reason the chat is all over the Mo Bamba call. Why are they all over it, and where do you stand on that?
Because Paul Reed got into foul trouble last game, and so Mo Bamba actually played and did well.
I see. Okay, that makes sense. Taylor, you made a stank face when the name got brought up. I assume he is not cracking the cash lineup there.
Mo Bamba, no. I don't think you play him in cash unless he's not starting. So yeah, definitely not.
Okay. And then I got this question from Danny. He says, so who do you like more, Doncic or SGA? You mentioned you like going that route as like the pivot spend up. Do you have a preference, or are these both just great spend up pivot options and you don't really have a strong lean either way?
Raw points, it's Doncic. It's just a matter of how much do you like your lineup compared to if you upgrade somewhere else with SGA. So point per dollar SGA, raw points Doncic. That's kind of a cop out, but I'm playing 29% SGA and 25% Doncic. So they're pretty darn close to even for me.
Okay, very good. The chat reminded me this is revenge narrative Mo Bamba. This is not just any old Mo Bamba. It is revenge. That changes everything. I'm rebuilding now that I'm aware this is revenge narrative Mo Bamba. All right, guys, we're about 10 minutes until lock. Taylor, is there anything you want to add here before we dive into the QQs with the RotoGrinders Discord and then eventually into the YouTube chat?
We got Tim Hardaway in and starting still. So that was one more of the things we were waiting on. But otherwise, ready for questions.
Okay, but not exactly a play that we're excited about, right?
No, if Luka would have been out, but since he's not, no.
Yep. Okay. We'll start with Sean. TJ, can you play Dennis Schroeder in a FanDuel GPP with him not starting? Or I think you mentioned you X'd him out once you got that not start.
Yeah, I don't think you can. We don't know how many minutes he's going to play in this type of situation, and it's not like it's a 2-game slate where we don't have any other options. Hey, take the shot. There's too many other good options, and he might play 22 minutes now.
Yep. Okay. FanDuel cash question for you, Taylor. Siakam Bridges, which is interesting with the Bridges thing, or Barnes Melton?
Barnes Melton for me.
What was that?
By a lot. Sorry, I was just agreeing.
Yeah. I thought you just randomly yelled lock at me, and I was like, what time is it at? BK says, all right, so TJ, projections like Wilson over Watford seems like he's jumped him in the rotation, but with them being shorthanded tonight, is Watford worth a lineup spot in a DK GPP? Is it 4 lineups? I think he's saying.
I guess since I have 25% of him, he would be in one of 4 lineups, but he's not in either of my single entry, and I'm playing a low dollar 150 max today. I'm recording a podcast right after this, and I got the morning grind with Stevie, so I'm going to be pretty busy. I didn't want to go high dollar, and so I'm more of just okay with losing money in this MME, and that's why I don't care about taking the shots. If I was only playing 4 lineups, I probably wouldn't get to Watford unless he was starting.
Okay, but some people still asking if he's in play on DK, and your answer is yeah, he's in play. You're playing him.
Large field DK GPPs, yes, he's in play.
Okay, great. FanDuel GPP, no way, even with Brooklyn so short, that Jalen Wilson will be optimal. Who's the near min pivot play to pivot to? I love that question. Taylor, I'm going to give that to you. If you're not liking Jalen Wilson in a FanDuel GPP, who is the near stone cold min player that you can pivot to in that spot?
So, I mean, Jayshawn Tate is 38 on FanDuel. We have him at 22 minutes with Brooks out. I suppose that would be the top near min guy. Armani Brooks, I do like that call in tournaments. He's kind of a shooter, and if the game gets out of hand, should see plenty of minutes. So probably a Brooklyn guy or Jayshawn Tate.
Okay, nice. What else do we have? FanDuel Cash 3v3. Taylor, right back to you here. OG, Wagner, Kuz, or Melton, Royce, and Scotty doesn't know Barnes.
Second one. Yeah.
Okay. Very good. TJ in full agreement here. Jumping into the YouTube chat. By the way, if you're watching on YouTube and you're like, hey, how expensive was this show? It's free. You're not paying anything. Your payment is just a thumbs up because we would appreciate it. And we want to keep this show free. So hit us with that little thumbs up if you don't mind. CW says, does Exum start or come off the bench? He's been starting, hasn't he? Am I making that up?
You are not. He is projected to start.
Yeah.
So we think he's going to start, but I don't think the starting lineup has been announced there yet.
Luka, Hardaway, Exum, Derek Jones Jr., and Lively is what we expect.
Yep. All right, let's see. Is Wade playable on a FanDuel GPP?
No.
Danny says, how much to sign up and what all do I get? That is a layered question. But go to RotoGrinders.com, hit the premium option, and it will give you all of the various options of things you can do. What you get is
in our description. It's right there. You can do the props and pick'em package, or you can do the full RotoGrinders premium package, and you can get a $10 discount off of your first month on the link in the description.
Look at you, TJ. That's beautiful stuff right there. That's I threw you the rock and you just absolutely crushed it there. Good job. With the windmill. Let's see. Is Wade playable in a FanDuel GPP? Did I get to that one?
Nope, he is not.
Nope. He's getting X'd out. All right. CB says, can you play SGA, Booker, and Macy? Probably means Maxey together in the same lineup in a DK GPP, TJ. SGA,
Heck
Booker, and Maxey. Yeah, if
you can make it happen, that's beautiful.
Right. It's never the top end of those options that look ugly.
Yeah.
It's who are the other 3 guys that you got to play to make that happen? That's the question. DK Cash, Randall or Barnes? Taylor, who do you like? Randall or Barnes? It's Barnes.
It's Barnes, but I do like Randall.
Yeah.
For what it's worth.
This is an interesting question. TJ, actually, I'll give this one to Taylor here. How much salary is okay to leave on the table in FanDuel single entry tonight? Are we in a spot where we can just leave money on the table?
I don't think so. With all the value, there's enough to, pay up for Luka, pay up for Barnes, pay up for Randall, whoever you want. So I wouldn't leave more than 300, 400 on the table.
Right. Okay. Rank your centers in a FanDuel GPP, TJ. Rank your centers. Sharp.
In a GPP, I would go Reed 1. Şengün 2.
Oh, baby, talk to me.
And Sharp 3.
Okay.
But Sharp is obviously the clear projection option. I just don't think he should warrant 60% ownership today when we actually haven't seen him have a game this year where he started and smashed.
Yeah. Okay.
It's basically exclusively been backing up Claxton, and we don't know he's actually going to play big minutes yet. So I think that is, I don't think it's by any means bad chalk, because he could have 50 fantasy points. But I don't think it is safe chalk, because I think he could easily end up playing 16 minutes.
Okay. And that kind of answered this next question from Smoke and Jay. We got about 2 minutes until lock here. It was Sharp Reed or Mo Bamba at center, and your feeling was you like to Reed.
For tournaments, I like Reed, yeah.
In a tournament, yeah. FanDuel single entry. TJ, 3 Philly players, 3 Toronto players, and 3 Brooklyn players. And this is my lineup. Maybe this is everybody's lineup.
That's all good.
Yeah. TJ, can I roll with Tobias, FanDuel GPP?
You can. I never like playing them, but that's bit me in the butt a couple times recently, because he's had some massive games. So I'm not in my single entries. I'll be a little under the field in my large field stuffs, but yes, absolutely, you can play him. That's just a personal bias for me.
Okay, let's go to Sick Dog 5, and Taylor, this one for you. Last piece, DK Cash. He said Pirtle or Reed, and then he added in or Trent, and I think maybe Trent is the game changer there once he added that one in.
Let's see. I mean, if you have the money, I think it's Pirtle for cash, but all 3 are good. I would lean Pirtle, though.
Okay, great. FanDuel GPP. Taylor, I'm just going to throw this one to you. Oubre or OG?
I prefer Oubre.
Okay. We Want Dean says, hey, good content, guys. I would say it would be nice if you could work in more shout-outs to Kirkwood. He is the king of Yahoo as well as Juggalo Nation. You're right. Yeah, what am I doing here? Not shouting out Kirkwood randomly on the show. Shout out to Kirkwood, the king of the Juggalos. I should do that every show, obviously. FanDuel, OG or Oubre straight up at 5,900. Who do you got if you can only have one, Taylor? OG or Oubre straight up?
Oubre.
Okay. TJ, DK, GPP, less than a minute until lock, guys. Would you be willing to part with Barnes to get Mitchell for the late night hammer? Nobody's mentioning Spider.
He'll be very low owned, but I like Scotty better.
Okay. All right. Let's see what we got. You've been kind of knocking out some of those questions there in the chat, TJ. Exum, Anunoby, or Oubre, DK Cash, Taylor, from Cam in the YouTube chat.
Exum, Anunoby, or Oubre?
Correct.
I'm still leaning Oubre, I think.
Okay. Rocco, we hit the lock. Rocco, okay for Philly? Is it too late?
No, he is not. And no.
Oh,
yeah, it is too late for that.
Okay. But yeah, so hopefully you don't have him.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, guess what we've done? We've made it to the lock. It is now time when we get to kick back and watch the sports. Guys, excellent stuff as always. So for Taylor, for TJ, for our wonderful production crew, always working hard behind the scenes. Guys, we do appreciate you. We love you. And we will catch you tomorrow. You have been crushed.